Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Quentin Lister. Today I'm talking with Rob Jepson, Mediator and JD. And today we're going to be talking about mediation and his approach to mediation and how it might differ from those that you've heard of. And also we'll talk a little bit more about just kind of how mediation in general relates to divorce. And so, Rob, you want to give us your name and contact information or a brief introduction of yourself for those at home who might want to get in contact with you after the interview?
Yeah, sounds great. So, hi, my name's Rob Jepson. Like Quentin said, I'm a mediator and I do family law mediation. So divorce, custody, child support, and all those very fun, very important topics. If anyone seeing this wants to contact me, you can visit robjepsonmediation.com or simpledivorceutah.com. And I'd be totally happy to chat with you. I always chat with people for free right off the bat. So if you just need help getting oriented, I'm happy to just have a conversation with you.
Thank you, Rob. So we spoke briefly beforehand before we in this interview. One thing we talked about was kind of you wanted to take some time to explain your approach to mediation. So I wanted to give you the time to do that. And so that'll be my first question to you. So how do you approach mediation, and how might that be different than how other mediators or other family law practitioners approach it?
Great. Yeah, well, first let me say that I'm a huge fan of mediation. I think that communication is just crucial in a successful relationship, and it's also crucial in a relationship that is ending. So I think mediation is a chance to get together and express what you want out of your divorce. You know, is it important to have the kids with you the majority of the time? Is it important to you to stay in the house where you were living when you were married? I'm just a huge fan of mediation. Mediators have different approaches. They say there are as many approaches to mediation as there are mediators, and I totally agree with that. My approach is pretty compassionate. And by that, I mean, I really like beginning mediation, not talking about legal jargon, not talking about initial offers and nuts and bolts. I really like to just listen to both clients. I like to ask, how did you end up here today? How did this divorce happen? How are you doing personally? And then I like to ask, what's important to you? So not necessarily, I demand $400 a month in child support. We'll get there. It's more important for me to understand, how are you doing financially? Do you need a lot of child support to get by? Do you need alimony to get by? Do you have a place to live? What's your relationship like with your kids? So that's where I like to begin, just on a very human, person-to-person level. And then once we know each other and once I know what matters to you, and then that's when we get creative. That's when we can talk about like, okay, this is important to you. This is important to your ex. Let's see how we can make a deal here. So that's kind of an overview of how I like to do it.
Yeah. One natural question I have is, so I've seen multiple kinds of mediation. I've seen where everybody's in the same room together talking, and then I've seen the shuttle mediation, that kind of thing. Does it matter to you whether everyone's in the same room, or do you do shuttle mediation as well? Is it like an either or? Do you prefer one over the other?
I'm open to whatever is comfortable for the parties. Normally, I find that the spouses or ex-partners don't really want to see each other. Mm-hmm. Usually I'm working over Zoom. Although I have a physical office when that's needed. And usually I have party one and their attorney in one Zoom room, and party two and their attorney in the other Zoom room. And I go back and forth. Sometimes if it seems like we're getting into a real legal discussion, I'll pull out the attorneys and put the attorneys in a room together so they can kind of talk shop and work through the legal details. But generally I keep the spouses or ex-partners separate, unless they want to be together, which does happen.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get that. I guess, right. I feel like there might be some times where it's like one potential issue with the shuttle type of thing, like, right. You don't have to see the person you don't want to see, right, is great. But I feel like maybe sometimes it would be beneficial to like be in the same room together just in order to, and for the sake of efficiency and like getting some things done. Is there ever like how would you like, how do you respond to a thought like that? Like, what are the kind of benefits of being in the same room together? And like, is there ever a time where you feel like that might take precedent over how people feel about the other person?
That's a good question. I like the way you framed that. So I think the times when it would be effective to put two people in the same room is if there's a really complicated issue that I'm not going to understand and that the attorneys aren't going to understand. You know, for instance, I'm just making this up, but if someone feels like they want to pick their kid up at baseball on Wednesdays, but only every other Wednesday because every third Wednesday grandma's in town, if it's just getting really complicated, sometimes it's easier for the partners to get together and say, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
Right.
this. And they say, oh
Right.
yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about. And then pull them back apart.
Mhm.
I think the
Okay.
other time it's valuable to put the parties together, and this is tricky, is sometimes the parties just need to feel heard. Sometimes mom or dad just needs to say, I feel really hurt. This happened. I feel like this was wrong. I feel like I deserve the house because you did X. Sometimes it's important for people to share those messages in order to be able to move on. Um, so sometimes it's a good idea to do that, but sometimes that can be really bad because now we're just fighting and you're paying a
Right.
mediator and you're paying lawyers to sit there and fight. So it's tricky.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say sometimes I feel like from just the little I've learned in my time as a legal assistant working in this particular area of law, that it seems like sometimes there's certain people who um, they're just hurting really bad and they're trying to make sure everyone else hurts as well, right? And so I guess it's just like, do you ever find that do you feel like mediation is useful when you have somebody who is kind of feeling vengeful, if that makes sense, right? Like how effective is mediation when you have a eventual party? I'm not trying to imply that there's like that it's like not beneficial, but I'm just I can see how maybe that might gum up the works sometimes, right? Where the other person's not really wanting to like settle or anything. They kind of just want what's theirs or what they feel like is theirs because they're hurting.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. It takes two to tango. If one person is not willing to negotiate, then there's really nothing that a lawyer or a mediator can do. Um, but I do want to say that in terms of feeling hurt, that's everybody.
Sure.
Everybody who comes to mediation is hurt. And for me, it's important to let them know that that's okay. I like to tell the parties, like, it's okay if you're mad. It's okay if you're hurt. It's okay if part of you doesn't want to settle just because you're feeling spiteful. Like, it's okay to feel that way. It would be kind of weird if you didn't feel that way in the middle of a divorce. And then I try to say, but today is a chance to try to close the book. Today is a chance to try to like finish this thing and be able to move on with your life. So if it's possible for you to set aside the vengeance, I think that'll make you happier long term than continuing to fight for the sake of vengeance, like you said.
Yeah, and that leads to a question for me that's like, what kind of mindset would you encourage people to have who are going into mediation, especially ones that have never gone to it before, right? And so
Yeah.
they don't necessarily know everything, what to expect, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess this is a weird way to put it, but I encourage people to be selfish. I encourage people to think about what's going to make me happiest long term. And I think often what makes people happiest long term is to close the book and say, okay, we're finishing this divorce today. I'm getting X, Y, and Z. My partner's leaving with A, B, and C, whatever, but I'm moving forward with my life after today. So that's the mindset that I try to encourage. That said, I'm not a therapist, and I
Right,
think
right.
you can't force anyone to do anything, but that's what I hope for.
Sure. No. No, thank you for those answers. Appreciate it. Yes. One thing I wanted to address is that I feel like perhaps there might be some in kind of the legal field who see like alternative dispute resolution and by extension mediation is kind of like this trendy thing.
Hmm.
It's kind of like something that like is just like being pushed by, I don't know, just like trends in society, that kind of thing. And I'm wondering, like, what to you, what's the most beneficial thing about mediation or just alternative dispute resolution in general that really makes it a beneficial thing,
Hmm.
as opposed to like it's something that's like a good alternative to say taking your case to trial, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
what makes it better than that, I guess, is my question.
Well, I think there are two main benefits, but I want to just acknowledge the word trend. And I want to say, I'm a young guy. I haven't been
Right.
around.
Yeah.
I haven't been on the planet for 8 years. I don't know
Right.
what's a trend and what's not.
Right.
So I guess for me, what's important is if it works. If
Right.
it works, then it's worth keeping around. And if it doesn't work, then we should get rid of it. I think there are two reasons that it's a good idea to use mediation. One is that it's faster. I guess three reasons. It's much faster. If you're waiting to go to trial, that extends the whole process by months. You're having to wait for court dates. You're having to wait for paperwork to go through, etc. Mediation, you can be done in one day. The second thing is that it's much, much, much cheaper if it's successful. So instead of paying an additional $10,000 or $20,000 to go to trial, you just pay your mediator for that day, and you pay your attorney, and you pay for the paperwork and filing. So it's much cheaper when it works. The third is what I mentioned before, is that I think it can be emotionally more settling. I think when you have some say in the outcome that you're getting, you tend to feel better about it. But if you go before a judge and you present your case, the judge just decides, and then that's it. And you don't really get to reason with the judge or be emotional with the judge once they've decided. So when it goes well, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it feels better. That said, of course, sometimes it goes poorly.
Right.
Maybe there's an argument that it shouldn't be mandatory. I don't know. I'll let the politicians debate that one.
Sure. Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate your insight on that. It's something I've thought about, and I'm sure other people have. And so thank you. And then I was so those were kind of the main questions I had for today. I wanted to give you the chance to bring up anything else you feel like might be good for those who are, what's something that maybe people should prepare for in the sense of whether it be emotional or whether it just be strictly make sure you have I know there's some people, it's like, we don't want to go to mediation until we've got the other party's financial declarations, initial disclosures, we know everything, that kind of thing. What to you, what kind of preparation is necessary to make mediation the most effective?
Yeah, I definitely think having all your ducks in a row makes the process go faster. Because if you're arguing about, let's say, child support is based on the incomes of the two parties. So if we don't know the incomes of the two parties, we're going to waste a lot of time, speculating and trying to dig up pay stubs. And that's time that the client is having to pay for. So it's in the client's interest to have all that information, your financial disclosures, initial disclosures up front and shared with the other attorney to make the process go faster. In terms of emotionally, maybe kind of harping on what I said already, I think it's a tough position to be in if you're someone going through a divorce or another family law dispute, because on the one hand, you want to be assertive. You want to stand up for what you need and what you deserve. And that's absolutely your right. Mediation should not be about forcing you to take a settlement that you don't want. That's not the idea. You should be assertive. You also, and this is where it's tricky, you also have to acknowledge that you are here to negotiate, you're here to settle, you're here to compromise. So it's sort of up to every person to decide, right now, am I compromising? Is this a good settlement? Or am I caving in? And it's really tricky, but that's where your attorneys can be really helpful and letting you know, no, this really is a good deal. You should take this. And this is where a mediator can be helpful. I'm I think this is a pretty good deal. I think you're both getting, something that's pretty fair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't know if you would want to answer this question, but I think about right. Yeah. You mentioned the idea of the attorney can kind of be a good sounding board for, am I actually getting a good deal here or whatever, and so I guess that naturally is what if someone is suspicious that their attorney is not trying to help them, that kind of thing, so is it worth it to get rid of the attorney, get another attorney or something like that, or what have you found has been or maybe what might you suggest in terms of making sure you're getting the right attorney who one isn't going to lie to you just to either A, benefit himself or or B, like you get out of mediation faster or whatever. And then C, who is like also going to be like not let you kind of sell yourself short, I guess, if that makes sense. It's not that it's the attorney's responsibility, like maybe it is, right? I'm the legal assistant, so I'm just kind of working through this question as I'm talking to you right now. And so what would you suggest in terms of people, like how they should interact with their lawyer and make sure that their lawyer is going to be someone who's going to help them get the best deal, whether it's in mediation or if mediation doesn't work, like going on to the next step?
I think that's a great question. So first, I just want to say that I love working with lawyers because they're smart, they know the issues, and they know how to fight. They know how to say, these are the facts, this is what we deserve. That said, there's a huge variety of flavors of attorney. Some attorneys want to fight, and they feel like that's their job. They've been hired to represent the client, so they're going to fight for the client, and they don't want to hear opposing arguments, and they don't want to back down or compromise or be creative. I think that's a valid approach to being an attorney. I've been hired to fight. I think there are other attorneys who take a more, I guess, holistic approach, which is like, yes, I am here to represent your legal interests, but I'm also here to help you build a happier life. Like, I'm not going to fight for the sake of fighting. I want to figure out what you care the most about and fight for that. So there's all varieties of attorneys, and there are all varieties of people. I think what's important is hiring an attorney who you feel comfortable with, because there are tons and tons and tons of great attorneys in Utah. So you just got to find the right one. So I would say if you're with an attorney who doesn't feel like the right fit for whatever reason, there's no shame in pulling out and finding a different one. That's totally okay. Just make sure that you're comfortable.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Rob, for addressing all those questions. I definitely feel like I've learned something here. And so I'm sure people at home watching have as well. And so I'm one more time going to give you the opportunity to just kind of state your contact information for those watching at home if they'd like to get in contact with you after viewing this, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds great. So again, my name's Rob Jepson. I'm a divorce and family law mediator. You can contact me online through Rob Jepson Mediation. It's Jepson, Jepson. Or you can go to simpledivorceutah.com and contact me that way. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on and talking about this important stuff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Rob.